This week, police make another shocking discovery at a New York City daycare.
We are clear that we must protect children in this city.
Plus, a pair of buses filled with passengers struck by gunfire.
In broad daylight when students are going home from school.
And the Gilgo Beach serial killer suspect back in court. Right now, Fox 5's Crime in the City. Here are the crimes across the 5 boroughs. We begin this week in East Harlem, where a police raid uncovers a stash of ghost guns at a daycare.
For the second time in less than 2 weeks, police raided another daycare center. This time, investigators say they found several ghost guns.
Police arrested 3 people, including one teenager they believe manufactured those guns. Fox 5's Briella Tanosetti joins us from East Harlem with those details. Good morning, Briella.
Yeah, Dan and Tashani, good morning to both of you. This was a family daycare run out of someone's home here in East Harlem, similar to the operation up in the Bronx. The difference being these ghost guns were not found by accident. Investigators apparently had their eye on this situation for quite some time now. Those guns were found in an unlocked room, and the daycare has since been shut down.
We are going to remain vigilant.
Mayor Adams made that promise to parents after police raided yet another New York City daycare. 3 people, including 2 minors, are now under arrest after illegal weapons were found inside.
Who would have thought that we must add to our list of inspections do we have 3D printers that can print guns?
The mayor held a public safety-related press conference yesterday where he held one of several ghost guns found in the East Harlem home daycare. Police executed 3 search warrants there on 117th Street as part of a long-term investigation into the manufacture and sale of privately made firearms, or PMFs.
Investigators recovered a 3D printer, 3D printing tools and plastic filament, 2 completed 3D printed firearms, 1 3D printed assault pistol in the final stages of assembly, and 1 additional 3D printed lower receiver.
Investigators say 18-year-old Karan Kohli, who lives in the apartment with his mother, and 2 minors bought ghost gun parts online and then assembled them inside. Kohli was charged with illegal firearms possession, manufacturing of a machine gun, and reckless endangerment. He was arraigned late last night. The NYPD also found a maltreated and neglected dog. Kohli's mother, who runs the home daycare, will not face any charges.
We got an 18-year-old in his room, 3D printer. He's not making little robotic toys. He's making guns. That should be scary to everyone.
The daycare has been up and running since early 2021 and was last inspected this February. It received 3 minor violations, which officials say were all corrected. The stunning find comes shortly after 38-year-old Felix Herrera was charged in the fatal fentanyl poisoning of 1-year-old Nicholas Dominici and overdoses of 3 other children. He was captured in Mexico on Tuesday after being on the run for nearly 2 weeks. Authorities say the Divino Niño daycare his wife, Gray Mendez, ran was actually a front for a drug peddling business. 2 others were also arrested in connection with this tragedy.
We are clear that we must protect children in this city.
Also in Harlem, 2 MTA buses filled with passengers are caught in the crossfire in broad daylight.
TWU Local 100, the union representing transit workers, tells us it's a miracle no one was hurt, and that it is. Let's take a look at the scene from earlier. Now, police say they're looking for at least 1 shooter after earlier this afternoon, just before 2:40, officers responded to shots fired at 1305 Amsterdam Avenue. Now, they arrived and found 2 occupied MTA buses that appeared to be struck with bullets near the intersection of West Amsterdam Avenue and 125th Street. TWU Local tells us that the M101 bus was going westbound on 125th Street when gunfire erupted on the street. Now, people on the street started running as the bus that was hit had about 60 passengers sitting and standing on it. Now, that bullet pierced the top of a window, traveled to the other side of the bus, and struck a light fixture just above the rear door. Now, the union says there were about a dozen passengers on the bus and M101. Now, a bullet hit a compartment in a rear lower section of that bus. Now, there's no word on who the intended targets were for that shooting, but again, luckily no one was hit or injured. But that doesn't lessen the frustration surrounding gun violence and safety here in the area.
There was nothing but a bunch of police officers. And when I asked what was happening, they said that there was a shooting. And I said, in the middle of the day, in broad daylight, when students are going home from school? And they were like, yes. So it was very disconcerting to see that happening in our community.
Now, that union president sent us a statement in part in response to that shooting saying, we're grateful that our bus operator and our passengers weren't hurt, but it's another reminder that our work can be dangerous and very stressful. People should be able to go to work and go about their lives without being menaced by gun violence. So far, there have been no arrests made in that shooting.
Moving downtown, police are looking for 12 suspects in the robbery of a young couple in the East Village.
Police are searching for 12 suspects in the robbery of a young couple. This is the East Village. Police say the group approached the couple early Sunday morning near East 12th Street and Avenue C. Police say one member of the group displayed a weapon and they took the victim's cell phones, purse, and wallet. The woman sustained minor injuries. Both victims refused medical attention. Anyone with information should call Crime Stoppers. That number is 1-800-577-TIPS.
Back in Upper Manhattan, a woman punched and robbed on the subway, and her attacker is still at large.
This morning, police are looking for the suspect they say robbed and punched a woman on a B train. Take a look. Last Wednesday night, the 24-year-old victim was riding northbound, approaching the 145th Street station. Cops say the person pulled the victim's hair, punched her in the face, knocked her to the ground, and stole her phone. The victim was hospitalized in stable condition, but if you recognize the person on your screen, call Crime Stoppers. That number, 800-577-TIPS.
Next, we head to Brooklyn, where the suspect in a brutal killing in Sunset Park faces a grand jury.
The man accused of beating a mother to death with a hammer and injuring her 2 children out in Brooklyn in a Brooklyn apartment was arraigned after a grand jury indictment. 47-year-old Lai Yang Yi is charged with second-degree murder and attempted murder. He faces up to 25 years to life in prison if he's convicted. The DA says the suspect was rooming with the 3 victims in a Sunset Park apartment building and argued with 43-year-old Zhao Zhao about their living conditions. She was pronounced dead at the hospital. Her 5-year-old son and 3-year-old daughter were critically injured as well.
Returning to Manhattan, residents in East Harlem facing the fallout of rampant shoplifting in the city.
The fallout continues after Target abruptly announced plans to close its East Harlem store due to shoplifting.
Fox 5's Arthur Chan pressed Governor Hochul today about what can be done to keep more retailers from following suit.
I find this tragic.
Governor Kathy Hochul reacting today to Target's announcement yesterday that it is shutting down its East Harlem location. The result, the company says, of rampant shoplifting.
I shop at a Target all the time. I find this very disheartening to know that they decided that enough is enough and they're leaving.
Large-scale shoplifting cost retailers $112 billion in losses last year, according to a survey by the National Retail Federation. Hours after Target's announcement, stores in Philadelphia, including an Apple store and a Lululemon, were hit. A shocking scene as police tried to secure the area. Officials there said the looting was separate from peaceful protests over a judge's decision to dismiss charges against a police officer on a fatal shooting case. As for New York, City Hall says stores were hit more than 22,000 times by shoplifters last year, and that a small number of repeat offenders are responsible for 30% of those thefts. The governor today says the solution is in the hands of the city.
It's a local policing issue.
Back in May, Mayor Eric Adams unveiled a plan to combat retail theft and shoplifting. The plan focused on trying to uproot the causes that lead someone to shoplift, while also looking at ways of deterring organized groups from conducting large-scale thefts. But the city's plan appears to have not worked for those who work here and also not worked for those who need to shop here. This Target employee spoke with us, asking we not identify her.
I don't know what we're going to do without Target. This neighborhood, we're not rich here. We have food stamps. People get on fixed income. Now they're closing in 3 weeks. I'm devastated.
As the city focuses on diversion plans, Target is now focused on diverting its entire staff here to other, safer locations.
And finally, leaving the city, accused serial killer Rex Heuermann is back in court as new evidence is revealed.
With a new haircut, khakis, and his hands cuffed behind a black jacket, suspected Gilgo Beach serial killer Rex Heuermann told a judge he spends 2 to 3 hours a day reviewing the evidence prosecutors are using against him.
He's an intelligent man. He's never been arrested. He wants to know what is it that they have that they're saying I'm involved in.
On Wednesday, the district attorney's office handed over 5,000 more documents to Heuermann's defense team, including results from a cheek swab that matched DNA found on pizza crust he allegedly discarded prior to his arrest. According to prosecutors, the DNA from that crust is consistent with the DNA profile from a hair found on burlap one of the Gilgo victims was buried in. His lawyer disagrees with the importance of the match.
DNA can be transferred. It's still a significant amount of people that could be the source of this hair.
The way the case is unfolding, is consistent with our expectations.
Heuermann, who was arrested in July, pleaded not guilty to the murders of 3 victims whose remains were found buried and bound in burlap sacks along a stretch of Ocean Parkway. He's also the prime suspect in the murder of a 4th victim, all sex workers known as the Gilgo 4. Prosecutors, who also handed over grand jury testimony and exhibits, subpoenas and logs from the search of Heuermann's home, say it's a complex case.
You don't take a 13-year investigation and turn it over in a day or two.
Heuermann's attorney says there's a lot they haven't received yet. He also said his client has been speaking with his estranged wife and children and argues he's not a monster of a person.
He's somebody who from the beginning has said he's not guilty. He's a fellow who was working, is a productive member of society, and obviously the district attorney, the government is making these allegations and they're horrific.
The DA says handing over all of the evidence is a lengthy process and he stopped short of giving a time frame. Now, as for Heuermann's defense team, they plan to wait for everything before going to trial. Heuermann is due back in court on November 15th.
And that's this week's Crime in the City. Subscribe for more at youtube.com/Fox5NY.